Welcome to Planet Stories. This week, we will move slightly away from our usual content and do a more laid-back, less educational video. My name is Matt, and I created this channel about a month ago to serve as a sort of a creative outlet for me. I've done 3 very educational and pretty formal videos up to this point, and this week I wanted to do something more personal and less scripted. We're going to structure this review in a way that it's easier to follow. There will be timestamps in the description if you want to jump to a specific topic or character, but there are spoilers in this review, so only keep watching if you have already seen the movie. I am a huge fan of Star Wars. I've been a fan since I was a kid. I've just recently watched Star Wars The Last Jedi in theaters and I decided to do a little review about it. This movie has been very polarizing. There's a huge group of people who like it, and an also equally as big group that dislikes it. A lot of hardcore Star Wars fans that really like the original trilogy are really like pointing the finger in this movie and saying that it's destroying the franchise in some kind of way. But let's start with some context, since this is my first movie review on YouTube. I've personally enjoyed The Force Awakens 2 years ago, despite the obvious Episode 4 comparisons and some plot holes. I also enjoyed the prequels for what they were back in the day, but I realized today that they were terrible movies. Now about The Last Jedi. I had a lot of expectations going into this movie. By far the thing that I wanted most was to get answers for all the mysteries that were seated in The Force Awakens. Primarily about Supreme Leader Snoke, Rey's parentage, and Kylo Ren's future. Right from the beginning, this movie used a lot of different strokes when compared to Episode 7. It was a little more fast-paced with the dialogue, and it felt a lot like a Saturday morning cartoon, especially from the way the villains behaved, in particular General Hux. And that wasn't a downside for me after I noticed it and conditioned myself for it. But going back to my expectations, I think the biggest downside for me was about The Last Jedi was how these expectations were met, or how my questions about the characters were answered. The biggest offender is by far Supreme Leader Snoke. I was so hyped to see his origin. He was so mysterious in The Force Awakens, mostly because we only saw him as a hologram. And in The Last Jedi, suddenly he's sitting in bright light and behaving exactly like the Emperor in previous films. As far as showing Rey how their fleet is getting destroyed and being all mustache twirler about it. And then he dies. The end. I felt kind of robbed by the way he was handled and wanted to get to know more about him and where he comes from. Now let's dive in and talk about the good and the bad about some of the characters. Rey was a character that I was really excited to see. I wanted to see her training and wanted to see her develop her powers. And of course know about who her parents were. I didn't really get any of that. Her training was very different than what I was expecting, but was really interesting nonetheless. I really enjoyed that sequence in which she reached out and saw the whole ecosystem of the island and how that related to the Force. The explanation about her parents, though, was a tiny bit underwhelming, not because of the answer itself, but more because of how it was delivered. Just inside that dialogue with Kylo Ren, really fast, oh, by the way, your parents were nobody. It was a big question for me, and I wanted I wanted the movie to address it better. But again, nothing to lose my sleep about. So Kylo Ren is a big one for me. I really like his conflict with the light and dark sides of the Force, and I enjoy his character being basically an edgy teenager trying to be someone in this crazy universe that he lives in. And also how everyone treats him like a kid. I liked him a lot in this movie, especially because he didn't turn to the light side. It would have been pretty disappointing if he had done that. The fact that he stuck with being evil was good, and his sequences talking to Rey through the Force internet were also great. I don't think I have anything to complain about when it comes to Kylo Ren. Luke was a weird one. I was looking forward to see him train Rey, mostly because we've seen young Jedi training in the past, but the whole process was never really explained. But we didn't get that, and it's fine. What we got was a different look into the Force. It was shown through Rey's training, or lack thereof, and that scene with Yoda, which I loved. His duel against Kylo Ren was also pretty inventive, and I think that was better than just another regular lightsaber duel. I think we'd had enough of those, and the franchise should try to invent a little bit more. So kudos on that. At the end of the day, Luke was fine. He passed the baton to the new generation like Han did last movie, and we now have only Leia to go until all the characters from the Holy Trinity are gone. Finn. Finn was a pretty big disappointment for me. I thought that he was going to have a more of a relationship with Poe Dameron, maybe even a romantic one. But that thread was completely deleted, and he got a pretty bad section of the movie on this planet that looked way too much like the Earth. You know, the casino planet with Rose, there were people wearing suits and playing dice and behaving just like people in Las Vegas. This is supposed to be a galaxy far, far away. How do you explain this in the lore? His kind of a love story with Rose was also underwhelming and didn't really go anywhere. And to sum it up, Finn was a huge missed opportunity for me in this movie, and hopefully he does something in Episode 9. And when talking about Rose, we have to talk about the whole influx of female characters that Star Wars has been getting. Don't get me wrong, I agree that the franchise needed more strong female characters. You know, we only had Leia to this point, and she was a damsel in distress in the first movie she was in. And she didn't really do much in the other movies. Yeah, she does. She did a little bit in Return of the Jedi, but I digress. And I love that the lead in Force Awakens was Rey and not Finn, like everybody was expecting. But in Episode 8, the female characters felt a little bit forced for me. And Rose falls in that category for me. She was very ham-fisted with the way that she just dropped the mission to help some animals in the casino planet. And her character seemed a little bit too watered down for me. It felt like her character had a mission outside the movie. It felt too meta, you know, even mixed with that planet that looked exactly like Earth. It felt like her character was in there to just, you know, be a token female character. And I love female characters. Some of my favorite characters of all time in movies are women, and I love when they are portrayed right, but I don't think the women in Star Wars are being portrayed right. I really love Rey, and I don't agree with the whole Mary Sue thing. I think her ability with the Force is totally, you know, explainable inside her universe. And that was the whole point of Episode 7, was the Force Awakens. And Rey is such a natural with the Force that she was using it without even knowing what she was doing, you know? And it's also the whole point of this movie, is you don't need all the training, you don't need the holy texts, you know. But going back to Rose, I didn't like her. The scene with her sister at the beginning was pretty cool, though. Jesus, Leia. Leia was fine. I literally gasped when she almost died and was having a heart attack in the theater. But then she used the Force to get back inside the ship. Now, it was a really cool scene, but have we ever seen Leia use the Force in any way before this? I really don't remember any other instance of this being set up. Anyway, she was good and did her job. I'm curious to see how they're going to handle her in Episode 9 due to the passing of Carrie Fisher. She'll have to go away somehow, and I don't think Carrie Fisher filmed the death scene in preparation for her own death. Now, Leia was good, but her resistance, on the other hand, oh boy. I found them to be extremely incompetent and just unable to punish people who get out of line. And no wonder they got decimated by the end of the movie. Poe Dameron was disobeying orders the entire movie, and yes, he was demoted by Leia at the beginning, but he just didn't care and kept being disrespectful to his superiors and disobeying their orders. It really bothered me that he just got away with everything. The resistance was really weird in this movie, and I hope it's not a thing anymore for the next movie. And it's probably not gonna be because they all got killed and they have like 8 people left right now. I think that's a good thing, you know. The resistance just felt too much like the rebels, just like the First Order just feels too much like the Empire. I mean, it feels like they just named the groups something else just for it not to be the same, just for this to be a new trilogy. I don't know. I like the origins of the First Order that we get from the books and the video games, you know, because they're like this this group of, Imperial forces that was sent outside the galaxy and then came back, after the Empire was destroyed and everything. But the movies aren't doing anything with that. The First Order just feels like the Empire, and that's it. In conclusion, The Last Jedi was entertaining. It had amazing special effects, as is always the case with Star Wars, but it was a little disappointing in many areas. I can't rank it very high in my list of favorite Star Wars movies for that reason. I know this review seems very negative, but at the end of the day, I enjoyed the movie, and it's still 1,000% better than any of the prequels. Just prepare for not much to happen in terms of character development, and for the big questions from Episode 7 to not really be answered. But if you're watching this, you have seen the movie because this has spoilers in it, and if you're watching this with spoilers without watching the movie, dude, you live life on the edge. So this was an experiment, a movie review in the style of Planet Stories. But anyway, thank you for watching the first movie review on Planet Stories. I hope you enjoyed. If you would like me to do more or less videos in this format, or have any other suggestions for future topics for the channel, comment on this video. And don't forget to subscribe for more weekly videos. And also, the channel is on Twitter, at Planet Stories Yo. Follow me over there. You get to know what the topic of the video is gonna be like 2 or 3 days in advance. It's kind of cool. Just do it. Do it, man. Just follow me on Twitter. I guess that's all.